Assalamu alaikum. Once, while conversing with God, Prophet Musa requested, "O Lord, I desire to meet the person who is to be my companion in paradise." Jibreel descended and informed him that his companion was to be a butcher who lived in a certain place. Prophet Musa set out in search of him and arrived at his shop. There, he noticed a youth resembling a watchman, busy selling meat. When night fell, the youth took some meat and proceeded towards his house. Prophet Musa followed him until they got to their destination. Prophet Musa approached the youth and said, "Would you not like to have a guest?" The youth willingly agreed and took him inside. Prophet Musa watched the youth prepare some food. When he finished, he brought down a large basket from the upper story. Also, he brought an old and wise woman from inside. He washed her and proceeded to feed her with his own bare hands. When the youth was about to carry the basket to its original place, Prophet Musa noticed the old lady's lips move as she mumbled something to him. The youth then brought the food for him and they had dinner together. Musa inquired, "What is your relation with this old lady?" The youth replied, "She is my mother. My financial state does not allow me to hire a maid to help her, so I strive to serve her and look after her." Musa questioned further, "What did your mother mumble before you took her upstairs?" He responded, "Whenever I wash her and feed her, she says, 'May God forgive you and place you in the company and in the rank of Prophet Musa in paradise.'" Hearing this, Prophet Musa said, "O youth, I give you glad tidings. God has accepted your mother's prayers, and Jibreel has told me that you shall be my companion in paradise." It must have been the obedience to his mother that drove this youth to paradise. Similar to how Al-Qasim, son of Imam al-Hasan, answered his father's will and chose to sacrifice his soul for his uncle and his Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. This small story of love and sacrifice was portrayed on the lands of Karbala long ago. The Ahlul Bayt are the youth of every century and every time.
Al-Qasim was the son of Imam Hassan. He was barely 15 years old when he accompanied his uncle Imam Hussein to Karbala. Before Imam Hassan's death, he left a will with his son Al-Qasim.
My dear son Qasim, if you witness your uncle Imam Hussein alone on the 10th day of Muharram, fight with him and die in his way. I count on you, O son. Give yourself to my brother Hussein. Give yourself in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
On the 10th of Muharram, after all the companions were martyred and Imam Hussein was left alone, surrounded by the enemy with only his family left, his nephew knew this was his chance. He wore his armor, his headgear, and prepared his sword and walked over to Imam Hussein to bid him farewell. At first, Imam Hussein did not want to allow him to fight.
My son Qasim, how do you view death on my path?
I swear by Allah, it is tastier than honey. O uncle, will you allow me to die before your hands? Will you give me permission, O uncle?
My dear nephew, how am I going to expose you to the enemy's swords?
Al-Qasim wanted to fight alongside his Imam. He began to kiss his uncle's hands and feet with tears running down his face. He told his uncle about the will that his father Imam Hassan left with him. Imam Hussein could no longer deny Al-Qasim's request. He took Qasim to his tent and gave him clothes that resembled a shroud. Qasim then got his father's turban and pieced it in half, using one half as a turban and the other he put around his shoulders. Imam Hussein finalized Qasim's gear and prepared him, then prompted him to bid his farewell to the women and children. His mother Ramla and aunt Sayyida Zainab were the first ones to see him and immediately knew he was next.
My son Al-Qasim, defend your uncle Imam Hussein alayhi salam and fulfill the will of your father Imam al-Hasan.
Pray for me, O mother. My uncle is all alone in Karbala, and it is my duty now to stand by him as my father ordered me. My uncle shall not die so long as my sword is in my hands.
Al-Qasim proceeded toward the enemy, reminding them what kind of battle they have entered.
If you do not know who I am, my name is Al-Qasim, Ibn al-Hasan from the family of your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. This is Hussein who you hold captive on these lands, O people who do not know the Almighty.
Al-Qasim continued to attack the enemy and kill their soldiers one after the other. Even at this young age, he was able to take over them bravely like no other man would. Here he was at 15 years old, fighting men that were much greater in build and older in age than he was. But he had faith in his heart, and that was more than anything anyone else had. At one point in the battle, Qasim's shoe was untied. He stopped to tie his shoe, and one of the soldiers took advantage of this inattention and hit his head with a sword.
O uncle, my dear uncle Hussein, I need you here, O uncle.
Imam Hussein came running to his nephew and struck the man who killed Qasim. He saw Qasim on the floor trying to find something to hold on to. Imam Hussein hugged Qasim.
My dear Qasim, it is with a heavy heart that you call upon your uncle, and he does not respond. And he responds and does not help you, or he helps you and is not able to save you. My dear Qasim, may he not live who killed you, and may their consequences be severe with your father Hassan and your grandfather Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Imam Hussein held him back to the tents. Al-Qasim's legs were dragging along the floor as Imam Hussein tried with all his strength to lift him. It is narrated that Imam Hussein had lost Al-Qasim and Ali al-Akbar at this point, and had felt exhausted and alone. As he laid Al-Qasim's body next to Ali al-Akbar, he would look at Al-Qasim and then at Ali al-Akbar and call out to them with tears in his eyes. The women heard the news of the martyrdom of Al-Qasim and came rushing into the tent to see him. Ramla, his mother, was among the women. When she saw her son cut into pieces, she began to hug his body and call out,
O my beloved son Qasim, I am proud of you that you have fulfilled your father's will, that you have become a martyr in the way of Allah, but I truly miss you.